episode number 32 of Slow by Designs. I'm the host, Aaron. Do you remember the story from episode 28? It was about some baker boys, bees, and an army coming to attack a walled city. That story was titled in German, Die Andernacher Bäckersuchen. Now, I found the same story. This is an original story in German, so I found it translated in English, and it's titled The Baker Boys and the Bees. And I know it's the same story because they actually talk about the city of Andernach with big walls and bees on top of the wall. I like comparing things sometimes, and this seems like just too good of an opportunity to pass up. And since English is my native language, it would be fun to read the translation. This is from a reader. It's the Beacon Second Reader, and it's by James Fassett. And this is a reader from about 100 years ago, a little bit more. So, if you like this sort of thing, be sure and press like, leave a comment, and answer the question. I have to go to Spotify to answer any questions or do any polls. Or you could go directly to the anchor.fm website where my podcast is hosted. So, this is The Baker Boys and the Bees, which can be found inside the Beacon Second Reader by James H. Fassett. The Baker Boys and the Bees. Long years ago, many cities had great stone walls around them. The walls were built to keep out enemies, for in those old days, cities often went to war with one another. The city of Andernach had around it one of these great walls. There was only one gateway into the city, and this gateway was guarded by strong iron doors. Just behind the doors lived a gatekeeper who did nothing but open and shut the gates. He watched them well. No one would come in who was not friendly to the city. The gates were not opened very often. Some days they were not opened at all, so the gatekeeper had much spare time. I am very fond of honey, thought he. I think I will buy a few hives of bees. I can place the hives on the top of the wall. There nobody will trouble them. Soon there were rows of beehives on the top of the wall over the gate. It happened that not far away there was another walled city named Linz. The people of Linz were the enemies of the people of Andernach. They were always watching each other and fought when they could get a chance. Now the people of Linz planned to attack and capture the city of Andernach. They called their wisest men together to see how the attack should be made. Many plans were talked over. At length an old man said, "Men of Linz, you know that the men of Andernach are lazy. They like to lie late in their beds. If we attack the city at sunrise, we shall capture it before they can get their eyes open." This plan seemed wise to the people of Linz, and an army was soon ready to march against the city of Andernach. One dark night, the army crept softly toward the walls of the sleeping city. The only people who rose early in Andernach were the bakers. They had to have fresh bread ready for breakfast. After their work was done, the bakers used to have a morning nap. But the baker boys had to stay awake and watch the loaves of bread. Two of these boys, named Hans and Fritz, were fast friends and were always together. One morning, just at sunrise, Hans said to Fritz. "Let us creep upon the wall over the gatekeeper's house. I think we can find some honey. The old gatekeeper is asleep. He will not hear us." The two boys crept softly up the stairs. They soon reached the top of the wall. "Did you hear that noise?" whispered Fritz. "Yes, it must be the old gatekeeper," said Hans in a low voice. "No, it seems to come from over the wall," said Fritz. The two boys crawled to the edge of the wall and carefully looked over. There stood the army of Linz. A ladder was placed against the wall. The soldiers would soon mount over the gate into the city. What was to be done? There was no time to wake the people. What could two boys do against an army? In an instant, Fritz thought of the beehives. The bees were awake if the people were not. Each boy seized a hive and bore it carefully to the edge of the wall. Then, with a strong push, down tumbled hives, honey, and bees upon the heads of the enemy. Such buzzing, such stinging, such shouting as arose. The boys ran down the stairs to the city hall. The old bell ringer was aroused by the cries. Soon the wild clang of the bell awoke the people of Andernach. Armed men ran to the city gate, but the bees had done their work well. There was no need for soldiers. The army of Linz was running away. Over the great gate, the people of Andernach placed a statue of the two baker boys, whose quick wit had saved the city. Like I said, this is originally a German story. And at the end of this English translation, it says so. German folk tale. Now, as I recall, the story in German was a little bit more detailed. It seemed to have a little bit more information, about twice as long. But one of the reasons this could be is that this is a second reader. It's not meant for too high a level. Then on the other hand, the book for beginners in learning German, that is also for beginners of learning German. So it's interesting that they would put a fairly lengthy story. And most of the stories were quite lengthy in that German reader for beginners learning German. Now, it's been a little while since I posted anything. Times have been kind of rough and not so normal. I do plan on getting on with the second reader of the beginning German. It would be nice to also finish out the poems from the first reader. And I started recording some and then got quite sidetracked with many other things. So I'm hoping that shortly I'll be able to monetize this. I hope that doesn't discourage any listeners that I have so far. But I'm going to try and monetize this podcast with regular advertisements. If there's anybody interested in sponsoring this, send me an email. You can send it to slowbydesigns@gmail.com, and we can talk about some deals. This is a great little reader. I have to say, I really enjoy this reader by James Fassett, the Beacon Second Reader. So anybody that's got an interest in these stories, go check it out on Gutenberg. and download The Beacon Second Reader by James H. Fassett. It's got a bunch of stories, and in between each story there's at least one, sometimes two poems. And then at the end of the book there are charts, so phonics charts. This is a great little storybook, and for our parents that don't appreciate the way of modern storytelling, this is a great alternative, or just a great book to share with your kids, if nothing else, not for particular study, just share the stories and poems. All right, that does it. Go back and check out episode 28, listen to the German version, and to those that, of course, those that understand German, please tell me, what do you think? Is the comparison about the same? Is there a lot more in the German version? Are the details somewhat different? Comments, I'll ask a question, and remember, go to Spotify or Anchor.fm. The links will be in the description, so you can visit both or answer the question. Thanks for listening.